This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 217. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and working experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, we got a spicy little leak of the new Horus Heresy Box, and it's real special. But first, you know what else is special? A website to call your very own, and today's sponsor can help with that. Squarespace allows anyone to design the website of their dreams with the most powerful and easiest design tools in the industry like Design Blueprint. Using AI technology empowers anyone to build a more personalized website tailored to their needs, crafting a bespoke digital identity. Choose from a professionally curated selection of styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Squarespace makes sure it's easy to launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools, so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. With Squarespace, it's never been easier to set up a unique online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier. Squarespace offers an unmatched ability to showcase your unique wares with images, video reviews, and add-ons all capped off with their seamless checkout tools, letting your customers use whatever system they prefer, whether Klarna, ACH Direct Deposit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, or ClearPay. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and ready to dive in headfirst, you can go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle or follow the link in the description to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I haven't been following along too closely with Horus Heresy. Horus Heresy looks like a really fun game, and I would like to try it out one day because it does look like a little bit of a weird hybrid of 7th, 8th edition, and 9th edition. And I do like the idea of some like reactive actions that you can take when your opponent does stuff, but just, it's Space Marines versus Space Marines. And I know that's technically not true. There's some other stuff. There's some Adeptus Mechanicus. There's the Imperial Guard, but not the Imperial Guard. But it's kind of Space Marines versus Space Marines, and I do like Space Marines, but the problem is I've been collecting Space Marines for like 10 years. I have a massive Black Templar army. I feel like I've experienced everything there is to experience with Space Marines. I even tried starting another Space Marine army for a little while. I collected kind of a big Death Watch army. And then I just discovered I didn't have enough love in my heart for another color of Space Marines, and there weren't even another color because Death Watch is black and Black Templars are black, so I ended up selling that force. But the Horus Heresy is interesting, and there's something to the word bearers. That deep, deep red with like this glowing script work all over them would be kind of fun to paint, but then it's just that, over and over and over. Horus Heresy. There's something to, what's the baby Horus Heresy? Adeptus Titanicus? But not Titanicus, it's a new name. Legions Imperialis, that's the little scale, right? There's something to that game. I do think that they got the scale slightly wrong because old Warhammer Epic truly was like tiny baby M&Ms fighting each other, and I think there's something magical about that scale, where your entire massive army kind of fits in like a child's lunchbox, where the new scale is increased, and so some of the models are actually kind of big. Kind of big models don't feel as like epically small as I think Games Workshop wanted them to. The detailing looks nice and better and whatever, but there's something to the old, kind of crunchy little miniatures. But all this to say, I can't sink my teeth into Warhammer the Horus Heresy, but there is a new box on the horizon. It's got the Salamanders versus the Iron Hands, and it's got some new stuff. Some new, very, very classic retro stuff. The box is called Warhammer the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness Saturnine. Saturnine is a very interesting name, and it's kind of shocking that Games Workshop used it because, as far as I know, I'm pretty sure Saturnine is actually a fan name for one of the original artworks and miniature of the original Dreadnoughts. There was one old like lead miniature from back in the day. There was 2 different Terminator armors, and one of those was the Saturnine Terminator Armor, and the other 2 were just weird, kind of bulky robot Terminator armors that didn't look very good. They very quickly switched over to the Terminator armor that we all know and love, which is called the Indomitus pattern Terminator armor. That is the classic Terminators. Then there's Cataphracti and Tartaros Terminator armor, which is, it's pretty cool. I think there's something to Cataphracti with the gigantic shoulder pads, but I do like modern Terminator armor a lot. But there is something to the older marks of Terminator armor. The lore of Terminators in general is that those suits were actually made for repair workers to be wearing so that they can like work on starship reactors, like in the reactor while the starship is moving, and they can just get blasted with all that energy and be completely fine. And then eventually they mounted guns to it, and storm bolters and combi bolters and heavy flamers and the Cyclone missile launcher, which has kind of always been the best option to take in game. But I've played so many games with Terminators, and the Cyclone missile launcher has never gone off. Whether I'm shooting it in the frag or the crack configuration, I feel like it whiffs every single time, even though mathematically that makes no sense. It's a really good gun. But I love Terminators. And the Saturnine Terminator is something I assume we would never see from Games Workshop because it's kind of a fan thing. For a little tiny bit of time, there was something that resembled the Saturnine Terminator armor, but it was just Terminator armor, and it happened to look a little bit different than what we know of as Terminator armor. But apparently, Games Workshop they must have copywritten the name Saturnine, and now they're making some Saturnine Terminators, and they look glorious. In this box, the Salamander's half, we got 2 squads of Saturnines, which come in 3-man squads, which is very interesting because these are like even heavier Terminators. And then there is a Saturnine Dreadnought, which is a Leviathan Dreadnought from the waist down, but it's Saturnine from the waist up. And it looks really, really good. The big, chunky mega shoulder pads look really good, especially on a Dreadnought. They have some really, really interesting weapons. One guy has like 2 plasma blast guns as both of his arms. It doesn't look like he's holding the guns. It looks like the guns are literally his hands. There's a Saturnine Praetor who looks incredible. He's holding a thunder hammer and he can only raise his arm about this far, but yet somehow he's gonna swing a power hammer. And his gigantic iron halo mounted to both shoulder pads. Big, giant feetsies. One complaint I have with Space Marines in general is that their legs are too small. Even Primaris, their legs are too small. If you look at the lore or like Space Marine 2, they definitely chunk up the lower half of Space Marines, which helps them look really, really powerful and heavy. And I feel like a little bit of that is lost in the miniatures when they have such tiny little wasp waists. But these guys are big, chunky dudes. And as a connoisseur of big, chunky dudes, these guys are so cool. This is a leak, but it's true. It's got to be real. The pictures, I mean, this is exactly what a box of Warhammer would look like. Everything is perfect. The weirdness, the weapons, the new things, the way the box is laid out. This is 100% the real new Horus Heresy box. And it does look glorious. Saturnine Terminators, but for realsies, Saturnine Terminators. They look to be on at least 50mm bases. Squads of 3. It's really interesting. Like, what is their stat line going to be? Because currently, Assault Marine or Assault Terminators with the Thunderhammer and Storm Shield, they have 4 wounds, which is a really nice breakpoint for Terminators. Because that means, like, if you're shooting into them with something that does damage 3, it's going to take 2 damage 3 shots to bring down a 4 wound guy. So you're making them waste 2 wounds. Are these guys going to have like toughness 7 4 wounds? I mean, then there's Centurion Warsuits. And I love Centurion Warsuits, maybe even a little bit more than Terminators. I don't know. I own like 30 Terminators and I only own 6 Centurions. So I guess by that metric, I do like Terminators more. But the Centurion Warsuits are really, really cool. I mean, these aren't going to be available in Warhammer 40,000, which is a little bit sad. I think they would make excellent proxies for suits of Centurion armor. And the Centurion armor's days may be numbered because technically that is an old hammer kit, or not an old hammer kit, but an old squaddy Space Marine kit. And so it may or may not be on the chopping block. I like to think it's not on the chopping block to get sent to Legends because Even though it is the old Space Marines that they don't really want to sell anymore, you can't see those Space Marines under the armor. And so they're kind of hidden. It could be a Primaris Space Marine wearing that armor. You just can't quite tell. I don't know, but big chunky new Terminators are really, really exciting. I can't wait to see the sprue for the Saturnine Terminator, because the original artwork of the Saturnine Terminator, they have like all sorts of different weapons attached to them. They have carapace mounted weapons, and a storm bolter, or not a storm bolter, but a heavy bolter looks really, really good up there between their shoulders. They got their little round smiley face sticking out of the middle of the armor. They look really, really cool and really interesting. They do harken back to the original retro days of 40K. The Praetor looks so good with all of his little bells and whistles, literally bells and whistles. His little wrist mounted, it looks probably to be a Volkite weapon. Man, these guys are really interesting. They kind of look like Obliterators to me. Like these would be an Imperial version of the Obliterator, which an Obliterator is just a regular Space Marine that's just exploded and deformed and is covered in tons and tons of guns. And Games Workshop annoyingly sells them in sort of sprues of 2 that are attached to the spider thing for the Chaos Space Marines, because they sold it in a weird bundle box forever ago, and then they never ended up making it into its own kit, and it's kind of frustrating. And let me take them in squads of 3. Squads of 2 for a blitz is kind of annoying, but these guys look to be in squads of 3. I don't think the Saturnine Armor is going to get me into Horus Heresy, but I might need to get some Saturnine Armor just to have and to hold. Oh, these Terminators are so cool. And speaking of really cool Terminators, there are whispers on the horizon of something coming for the Black Templars in the near future with the Black Templars Codex. And the rumor is that is going to be a Marshal wearing Terminator armor. And I recently got some Terminators. I got this spicy little box. I waited 180 days for Games Workshop to make this for me. But this is Space Marine Heroes Series 2, the Terminator series. It was, if you remember, if you went to like a Warhammer store, they used to sell these little blind boxes of miniatures. The Death Guard ones were really, really good. Then there was Space Marine Heroes Series 4, which was random Primaris Space Marines. And those actually got paired off into the new Kill Team box, so you can get those miniatures that way. But you couldn't buy these except for one random week where Games Workshop was selling made to order Space Marine Heroes Series 2. And this is all about the Terminators. There's like 2 sculpts of every single weapon option for Terminators. These guys are just a hair shorter than the modern Leviathan Terminator kit, but they're quite a bit bigger than the old plastic Terminators. And I got big plans for this box. I don't have Assault Terminators. I have so many regular Terminators. I've got 20 from back in the day, and then I've got 20 of the Leviathan ones. And so, I have 10 of the old, 20 of the new, but I don't have any Assault. And I have been math hammering so hard on the Thunder Hammer versus the Lightning Claws. And the Thunder Hammers are better, but really not by that much. The only time they really skew better is if you're going into much harder targets like Knights or Land Raiders or Rogel Dorn tanks, anything with like a 2-up and an invuln or some way to blink away damage. But really, Terminators aren't great at that role anyway. And so I feel like there's something to the Lightning Claws. What is it? 3 attacks apiece at Strength 5, twin linked? So you're rerolling wounds, and Space Marines with Oath of Moment can really easily be rerolling hits. So you can have all of those great Terminator hits, rerolling wounds. You can have +1 to wound if you take a chaplain. Like, you can get absolutely nuts with Terminators. And so I think there is something to the Lightning Claws. I think my current plan is to build 5 of each. I want 5 Lightning Claws, 5 Thunder Hammers. The Thunder Hammers are a little bit better into other Terminators, and Terminators are actually not a bad unit to throw your Terminator squads into. They can deal with it, where Terminators are actually pretty hard to deal with. They don't actually do a lot in game, but they survive. If you're a Black Templars player, You know the power of Tannhäuser's Bones. It's an enhancement that you can take on something to give your 6-up Feel No Pain and turn it into a 5-up Feel No Pain. You can take Terminator Ancient with Tannhäuser's Bones, and then you can take a Terminator Captain, and then you can take a full 10 brick of Terminators, which is like 535 points. It's more than a quarter of your army, but it is glorious. I played so many games. I took it to a tournament. I played one game where I marched them up the board onto the center objective, and then I popped Armor of Contempt for the save, for helping with saves before it got nerfed, so it was helping my save characteristic against all attacks. And my opponent was like, I just shot the Terminators with my entire army, and I killed 2. I love Terminators. They're so much fun. They're not great. Like there's better things you can take if you want to kind of win the game, because Terminators have trouble doing objectives. They can hold points, especially with the banner guy, because he gives them +1 to their objective control. But I do need some assault Terminators. I have a Land Raider. And regular old Terminators with the Stormbolters are actually really nice because it's at 12-inch range, it's 4 shots apiece. So you can get an absurd number of bolter shots. I've even overwatched with it to get rid of like screening chaff. It's like regular Terminators are fine, but 4 wound Terminators, potentially with a 5-up Feel No Pain, is disgusting, disgustingly resilient. And so I've got big plans for my Terminators. I would like to get a move on with these guys so that I have an assault squad of Terminators ready to go for if or when Games Workshop comes out with a Terminator character specifically for the Black Templar. And it doesn't even matter to me what kind of rules it has. They can be garbage, but I'm still gonna take it because it's a Black Templar's Terminator character. I'll scooch all of my current Terminator characters out of the way so that I can slip in the Black Templar character. And then Saturnine Terminator Armor is really cool. I could bring it as Centurions, but I love Centurion warsuits and I have so many of them. There's really no place in my army for Saturnine, but I might need to make room for Saturnine Terminator Armor just because it's so cool and interesting. And it's a weird piece of Warhammer's history. And it's really weird that Games Workshop is kind of embracing the fandom that has cropped up around the Saturnine Terminator Armor. A lot of different makers and sculptors do have a version of Saturnine Armor that harkens back to that original pewter miniature, lead miniature, whatever it was made out of. But it's interesting that Games Workshop's like, we're bringing it back. We drew 2 pictures of this thing once, and then immediately scrapped it in favor of the current suit of Terminator Armor, which is much better. But there's something to the weirdness and the wackiness. Saturnine Terminator Armor is almost as weird and wacky as our website, EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch like our Nick and Jay dice, and is the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members get a credit that they can use on our new monthly terrain packs or any previous pack we have ever made. This May, we're delving back into the Hungry Maw with the Infested Colony, a world recently ravaged by the chitinous teeth and claws of the Endless Swarm. A series of ruined buildings crumbling under the weight of hypercharged plant growth and impaled by alien limbs. And shipping containers that have been ripped to shreds or torn open from the inside out. These relics of an alien war are designed with competitive wargaming in mind and an eye for storytelling, matching perfectly with our previous alien hive colony. With this set, you can build a wargaming table dripping with alien atmosphere. Terminators are one of the greatest things in all of Warhammer 40,000. I'm slowly but surely working on my Death Guard army, and I'm planning on putting a lot of Terminators into that army as well. The Death Shroud Terminators and the Blight Terminator, the generic ones, are both really, really good, and they're looking really spicy in the new codex. Obviously, I need more Terminators for my Black Templar army because I don't own more than 50 yet, and so obviously I need to fix that. I like a good Terminator. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of Saturnine Terminator Armor? Is it just like a weird cash grab of Games Workshop trying to milk nostalgia? Or is it like if Games Workshop said, oh no, we've always liked Saturnine Armor, we were just, hanging on to it for a special occasion. I mean, obviously that's not true. They drew a picture of it once, and then they're like, no, the current Indominus pattern of Terminator Armor is the official Terminator Armor. And then that old mark of armor was just something special for the salamanders. And it does look like it is something special for the salamanders because they're painted up like salamanders in the new box. I don't know, I think they're really, really cool. Thanks for watching.